Let's start English version of it. Okay. The motivation that predominates during flow and contrast is entirely different. The flow state is intrinsically pleasurable. Yes, of course, that's true. Definitely, right? Okay, you don't care whether you're improving some narrow aspect of your skill set. And though you are concentrating 100%, you are not all in a problem-solving mode. You are not analyzing what you're doing. You're just doing. You're getting feedback. But because of the level of challenge, just reach your current level of skill, that feedback is telling you that you're doing a lot right. You feel like you're in complete control because you are. You are flooded. You lost track of time. You lose track of time. No matter how fast you're running or how intensely you're thinking, when you're in flow, everything feels effortless. In other words, deliberate practice is for preparation, and the flow is the performance. Here's my own story of hours of effortful, deliberate practice, leading to moments of effortless flow. More practice, more refinement. Which leads to my second suggestion for getting the most out of the deliberate practice. Make it a habit. By this I mean, figure out when or where you're most comfortable doing deliberate practice. Once you've made your selection, do deliberate practice then and there every day. Why? Because routines are a godsend when it comes to doing something hard. Amount of the research studies, including a few of my own, show that when you have a habit of practicing at the same time and in the same place every day, you hardly have to think about getting started. Just do it. Yeah, exactly. Whether you can make deliberate practice as aesthetic as flow, I don't know. But I do think you can try saying to yourself and to others, that was hard. It was great. Purpose. Interest is one source of passion. Purpose? The intention to contribute to the well-being of others is another. Okay, I don't really know about that, so I'm going to read this part. For that, okay, culture of great. Culture of great? What is that? I don't know about this one. Okay, conclusion. This book has been about the power of grit to help you achieve your potential. I wrote it because what we accomplish in a marathon of life depends tremendously on our grit, our passion, and perseverance for long-term goals. An obsession with talent distracts us from that simple truth. This book has been my way of taking you out of your copy and telling you what I know. I almost done. Let me close with a few final thoughts. The first is that you can grow your grit. I see two ways to do so. On your own, you can grow your grit from the inside out. You can cultivate your interest. You can develop a habit of a daily, challenging, exceeding skill practice. You can connect your work to the purpose beyond yourself. And you can learn to hope when all seems lost. You can also grow your grit from the outside in. Parents, coaches, teachers, bosses, mentors, friends, developing your personal grit depends crucially on other people. Surely, you also want to be happy, and while happiness and success are related, they are not identical. Here's another question I had quite answered in my research. Can you have too much greed? Aristotle argued that too much or too little of a good thing is bad. He speculated, for example, that too little courage is cowardice, but too much courage is folly. By the same logic, you can be too kind, too generous, too honest, and too self-controlled. It's an argument that psychologists Adam Grant and Barry Schwartz have revisited. They speculate that there is an unworldly U function that describes the benefits of any trait, with the ultimate amount being somewhere between the extremes. So far, with the greed, I have found the sort of inverse U that Aristotle predicted, or that Barry and Aram have found for other traits, like extroversion. Regardless, I recognize that there are trade-offs in any choice, and I can appreciate how that might apply to greed. It isn't hard to think of situations in which giving up is the best course of action. You may recall times you stuck with an idea, sport, job, or romantic partner longer than you should have. In my own experience, giving up a piano, when it became clear I had neither interest in it nor obvious talent, wasn't a great decision. I could have given up even earlier, actually, and saved my teacher from having to listen to me inside read all the pieces. I hadn't practiced in a week before. Giving up on becoming fluent in French was also a good idea, even though I didn't enjoy it, and I picked it up more quickly than I did piano. Less time spent on piano and French freed up time for pursuits I found more gratifying. So, finishing whatever you begin without exception is a good way to miss opportunities to start different, possibly better things. Ideally, even if you're discontinuing one activity and choosing different and lower order goals, you're still holding fast to your ultimate concern. One reason I don't worry much about the epidemic of greed is that such a prospect seems to be removed from our current reality. How many days have you come home from work and said to your partner, "Gosh, everyone at the office is just too greedy. They stick with it and most follow the goals too long. They try too hard. I wish they were less passionate." Recently, I asked 300 American adults to take a greed scale, and after receiving their scores, to tell me how they felt. Many said they were happy with their scores, and some wanted to be greater. Nevertheless, in the entire sample, there wasn't a single person who, upon reflection, aspired to be less greedy. I'm certain most of us would be better off with more greed, not less. There may be exceptions, greedy others who don't need to be any greater, but those exceptions are rare. I've been asked on more than one occasion why I feel greed is the only thing that matters. In fact, I don't. I can tell you, for example, that greed is not the only thing I want the children to develop as they round a corner from childhood and maturity. Do I want them to be great at whatever they do? Absolutely. But greatness and godliness are different, and even forced to choose either for godliness first. As a psychologist, I can confirm that greed is far from the only or even the most important aspect of a person's character. In fact, in studies of how people see size of others, morality trumps all other aspects of character in importance. Sure, we take good notice if our neighbors seem lazy, but we're especially offended if they seem a lack of qualities like honesty, integrity, and the trustworthiness. So, greed isn't everything. There are many other things a person needs in order to grow and flourish. Character is plural. One way to think about greed is to understand how it related to other aspects of character. In assessing greed along with our other virtues, I find three reliable colors. I refer to them as the interpersonal, and intellectual dimensions of character. You could also call them strengths of will, heart, and the mind. Intrapersonal character includes greed. This colorless virtue also includes self-control, particularly as it relates to the resisting temptations like texting and the video games. What this means is that greedy people tend to be self-controlled and vice versa. Collectively, virtues that make it possible to accomplishment of personal values, goals that have been called performance character or self-management skills. Social commentator and journalist David Brooks calls these resume virtues because they're the sort of things that get us hired and keep us employed. Interpersonal character encourages gratitude, social intelligence, and self-control over emotions like anger. These virtues help you get along with and provide assistance to other people. Sometimes these virtues are referred to as more character. David Bruson prefers the term erroneous virtues because in the end, they may be more important to how people remember us than anything else. When we speak admiring of someone being a deeply good person, I think it's this color of virtues that we are thinking about. And finally, intellectual character includes virtues like curiosity and zest. These encourage advice and an open engagement with the world of ideas. My longitudinal studies show these three virtue colors predict different outcomes for academic achievement, including stellar report, core grades, and a color containing degree is mostly predicted. But for positive social functioning, including how many friends you have, interpersonal character is more important. And for a positive, independent posture toward learning, intellectual virtue triumphs the others. In the end, the plurality of character operation against any one virtue being uniquely important. I'm often asked whether encouraging greed is related to discernment by setting expectations unreasonably high. Careful, Dr. Duckworth of our children we all grew up in thinking they can be. You said involved Wolfgang Mozart or Albert Einstein. If we can be Einstein, is it worth studying physics? If we can be Usain Bolt, should we go for a run this morning? Is there any point in trying to run a little faster or longer than we did yesterday? In my view, these are sure questions. If my daughter says to me, "Mom, I should have practiced my piano today because it had never been measured," I'll say in reply, "You are not practicing the piano to be measured. We all face limits, not just in talent, but in opportunity, but more often than we think. Our limits are self-imposed. We try, fail, and conclude we bumped out heads against the ceiling of possibility. Or maybe after taking just a few steps we change direction. In either case, we never venture as far as we might have. To be greedy isn't to keep putting one foot in front of the other. To be greedy is to hold fast to the interesting and the purposeful goal. To be greedy is an invest day after week, after year in challenging practice. To be greedy is to fall down 7 times and rise 8. I was interviewed recently by the journalist. As he wasn't picking up his notes, he said, "So it's obvious you could have talked all day. You really love this subject. Oh gosh, is there anything interesting as psychology of achievement? Could there be anything more important?" He chuckled. He said, "I absolutely love what I do too. It's amazing to me how many people I know who are well into their 40s and haven't really committed to anything. They don't know what they're missing." One final thought. Earlier this year, at the latest MacArthur Genius Awards were announced. One of the winners was the National Quotes. It's journalist whose second book, Between the World and Me, has been an extraordinary bestseller. 8 years ago, Coates was unemployed, recently laid off by Time magazine, and scrambling to freelance work. It was a hard time. He guesses he gained 30 pounds from the steam. I knew what kind of writer I wanted to be. I was not becoming that kind of writer. I was banging my head against the wall, and then nothing was coming out. His wife, he says, was an eagerly supporter. Still, they had a young son. There are practical realities. I was considering joining a cab. He finally got back on his feet, and after pushing through the extraordinary stress of his book, he began to hit his stride. The writing was very, very different. The sentences had much more power. In his 3-minute video posted on the MacArthur website, the first thing Coates says is, "Failure isn't probably the most important factor in all of my work. Writing is failure, over and over and over again." Then explains that as a boy, he was incessantly curious. Growing up in Baltimore, he was particularly obsessed with the idea of physical safety and the lack of thereof, and has remained so since. Journalism, he says. Let's see him keep asking the question that interests him. Toward the end of the video, Coates offers a vast description of what it's like to write that I've never heard. To give you a sense of his intonation and the condense, I've laid out the words and I heard them as a form. The challenge of writing is to see your horribleness on page, to see your terribleness, and then to go to bed and wake up the next day and take the horribleness and the terribleness and refine it and make it not so terrible and not so horrible, and then to go to bed again and come the next day and refine it a little bit more and make it not so bad, and then go to bed and next day and do it again and make it maybe average, and then one more time. If you're lucky, maybe you get good, and if you're done that, that's a success. You might think Coates is especially modest. He is, but he's also especially greedy, and yet they have to meet the MacArthur's Fellow, Nobel Literature, and the Olympic champion who says that what they achieved came in any other way. You are no genius. You are no genius. My dad used to say when I was just a little girl. I realize now he was talking to himself as much as he was talking to me. If you define genius as being able to accomplish great things in life without effort, then he was right. I'm no genius and neither is he. But if, instead, you define genius as working toward excellence, ceaselessly, with every element of your being, then, in fact, my dad is a genius and so am I. And so is Coates, and if you're willing, So are you. 7 questions and I get asked about greed. Okay, I think I should read one more again tomorrow. The same as the conclusion. Question. What kind of question? 7 questions? Okay, 7 questions. 7 questions and I get asked about greed. What followed in the debate of greed was an visual of talks, interviews, and the signings. In parallel, there was a flood of book reviews and from various public intellectuals, a number of think pieces, some admiring and others critical. Though many commentators waved the flag of greed, others wanted to burn it. The only point of unanimity was that greed wasn't a new buzzword in the business world and in education. More meaningful to me than these public politics and the critics were the hundreds of personal stories and the questions I received from readers. A few topics have come up again and again. Here they are, along with my answer. What about work-life balance? Doesn't greed come at a cost? Like an investment, greedy devotion to a single top-level goal comes at a cost. In particular, the time you devote to thinking about and working toward your goal is a time you are not doing other things that you also care about. For instance, the time I spend in the lab, reading and writing at home, and traveling for meetings, adds up to about 70 hours in an average week. Many of the high achievers I've studied are putting close to that number. Others work even more. In those hours, I'm not focusing on my husband, our teenage daughters, my best friend, or my extended family. In those hours, I'm not relaxing or catching up on world events, exercising or sleeping. If I didn't work such long hours, dinner last night and the Dutch person at home might have been more sophisticated than reheated frozen meatballs and spaghetti sauce from a jar. If I'd dialed back a little, I probably know more people in my college reunion, and my family would probably see even more greeting cards in holiday time. So yes, greed involves a trade-off. The root of the word passion is petty, Latin for to suffer. And it's not only you. Personally, you pay the cost. It's also your family and friends. Most of you work 7 hours per week to be greedy? No. But when you really love what you do, you might find that you want to. You might feel, as I do, that nearly everything you see, hear, read, or experience is in some way relevant to your work. You might find that you don't want to take a vacation from your calling. How to allocate your time, energy, and attention is a decision only you can make. And no matter your choices, some degree of conflict between your personal and professional goals is inevitable. Of the 168 hours you have in a week, you may end up devoting 7, 70, and 77 to work. Whatever you choose, I have one suggestion. Like in the paragons and of the greater study, consider curating your many low-level professional goals such that they align with a single top-level professional goal. A good start would be to write down your ultimate concern on a piece of paper. Give yourself a maximum 10 words, but the shorter the better. If you read this book, you have a few examples. Mine is 7 words long. Use psychological science to help children thrive. For Petty Core, there wasn't just 2. Always complete, and a Woodsmith, life started by the tree, create and relate. Why do this? Because the process will help you achieve clarity. You will have a clearer sense of who you are, what you care about, and how to align your effort with your identity. Just recently, I learned of a study of young adults who kept daily diaries for 40 days. Each day, they were asked to complete a short adaptation of the grid scale, and in addition, to reflect on what the researchers call clarity of self-concept, measured with items like today, I had a clearer picture of what I am. When analyzed longitudinally, the data showed that increasing clarity of self-knowledge predicted increases in an agreed vice versa. Having a clear sense of oneself, the researchers concluded galvanizes in subsequent soul perseverance for one's goal engagement. Clarity won't give you more hours in a week, but it will help you to get more out of your hours. As Will Smith once told me, harmony is an aerodynamic. Can you lose your grit? I was passionate about something before, but for some reason I feel like I no longer have it in it to me. When I get an email asking, in so many words, what do I do when passion has given away the burnout? I think of my cousin Tom. Tom hasn't lost his grit, but has seen many others who have. A physician and researcher, Tom is among the keenest observers in human nature I know. He tells me, and the statistics back him up, that there is a virtual epidemic of burnout in the healthcare sector compared to the medical practitioners of the past and compared to those in many other professions. Today's doctors and nurses report alarming levels of burnout. Of course, in any profession you can name, from the most glamorous to the most mundane, there is burnout. If this question particularly interests you, it may be because you've lost it in the middle and are wondering what it had happened. Here's what I think. No matter what you've fallen in love with doing, it's possible to fall out of love too. Burnout is not an illusion or a myth. It's a psychological reality. Oh, scientists who study burnout agree that it's an important feature. It's a feeling of exhaustion instead of burnout in the workplace. What usually accompanies exhaustion is depersonalization, the sense that you are unconnected to the people you are serving and working with, and also helplessness, the sense that no matter what you do or how hard you try, you are not making progress. As we learned in chapter 9, feelings are downstream from thoughts. So the feeling of exhaustion, in my view, is what happens when you think. I'm trying my best to be useful, but no matter what I do, I'm not really making a difference. Though burnout isn't a psychological problem, the solution isn't always between the ears. In other words, it's very often the objective situation itself that urgently needs changing. Maybe your boss is in a bully or in Vika, the absolute antithesis and supportive yet demanding leaders described in chapter 12. Maybe you're working on a company whose core mission conflicts with your most deeply cherished values. In these cases, my advice in a change situation: look for another boss, another company, or another position. But what if your whole industry, like the healthcare of journalism, is undergoing seismic changes? What if their changes are eroding your capacity to feel joy and satisfaction the way you used to? In new research with my collaborator, Ronan Askins Whitaker. We are finding that giving advice to others always and staying a greedy helps renew our own grit. Why? To be honest, we are not entirely sure. One possibility is that by encouraging another person in need, we direct attention to what we can change about a situation. As some coaches like to say, when advising others, we focus less on the many things we can fix on our own and instead concentrate on controlling the controllables. Another benefit perhaps is that sometimes what we need the most is a reminder of lessons learned but easily forgotten. My favorite explanation is that providing counsel may satisfy a deep human motivation to be useful. In other words, if the feeling of being burned out comes from the thought, I'm not happy no matter how hard I try, then perhaps giving advice to someone in similarly difficult situation shows us that, in fact, what we do makes a difference. Is the relation between a greed and socioeconomic opportunity? Is it easier to grow up greedy in poverty or in affluence? Kenyon asked Manny and Cody Coleman, paragons of greed whom you meet in early chapters, have told me that developing passion and perseverance is possible for anyone and everyone. Even such trauma is not a royal road to greed. On the contrary, it's well documented that poverty, discrimination, and uncertainty can have a crushing effect on physical health, psychological well-being, and character development. A recently published study of athletes directly tests the idea that talent needs trauma to bloom. Researchers interviewed the professional athletes classified as super champions or almost. A super champion, as judged by this study, plays at the very highest level, an average of 73 appearances for the national team in the sport's most elite league. Champions play at the same level, but on average have only 4 appearances. Almost are players who, in their youth, achieved similar accomplishments as other athletes but eventually top out in this sport's second highest league. Following a standardized scribe to explore in depth each athlete's life history, no evidence was found for the necessity for the major trauma as a feature of development. If anything, there seems to be a higher instance of such a trauma in lower rather than higher achievers. At the other end of the spectrum are children with extreme privilege. Parents in the Walt Disney family often worry they might be an overparenting. The same study of spoiled. The same study of athletes suggests this concern indeed legitimate. Super champions surveyed by researchers tend to have parents who are supportive in the least intrinsic way. Said one, they're supportive, but they didn't drive me. They didn't push me at all. In contrast, champions have parents who are more hands-on and almost describe the parents as more dedicated to their athletic achievements than the athletes themselves. Once there, on my own at university, I seemed to lose my way. No one telling me what to do. I just lost interest. If you made a habit of driving back to your child's school to retrieve a forgotten history textbook, or scolding your children's coach for not putting them into a game, ask yourself whether you're parenting wisely or parenting permissively. Permissive parents are extremely supportive, but unfortunately not demanding enough to develop their children's competence. And while this feels good for both parents and children in the short run, the long run cost is children who are less likely to develop into independent, confident, and successful adults. Here's how Anson Dorson in Cost in Chapter 12 puts it. Sometimes we are willing to make the emotional investment in our kids at home or the kids we are teaching, because to do so, we have to be somewhat demanding and critical. It causes stressful moments of conflict, and that's taxing Christ. Even in my own home, I can see what happens when my wife and I come home from a long day of work and are very tired. Donovan, our 4.5-year-old son, has been eating in front of the television, and he decided to leave his dish there and go play in his bedroom. Well, the correct behavior is that to go find Donovan and say, Donovan, your decision is sitting there in the living room, and that's not where you leave it. When you're finishing eating, you bring it to the kitchen and put it in the dishwasher. Then there is the moment of confrontation with Donovan that is emotionally taxing. In a very small way, he will roll his eyes, object, and say, he will do it later. Well, now you're getting a little angry because he's trying to blow you off, and it's not a very pleasant experience. It's not an issue about getting the dish in a dishwasher, but we are not in a mood for this type of dispute. And if we are the sort of parent, educator, or coach who doesn't have the strength to constantly have these battles, we pick up the dish and put it in the dishwasher. Okay, now the dish in the dishwasher, but Donovan has a lower standard of expectation. Whatever the parent's education or income, all children really need the same thing. Appropriately demanding challenges in a combination with a constantly warm and respectful support. I worry that some kids, especially those growing up in poverty, get too much challenge and not enough support. On the other hand, I worry that many kids, especially those with permissive parents, get a lot of "I love you, sweetie" without enough. I know you can do better. Let's see what you can do tomorrow. The realities of the class and opportunity in society surely have an influence on the development of grade. The question is, what will we do as a society to ensure that all children grow up with the daily opportunities to try, fail, learn, and grow?